So I want to start this video with a bit of a disclaimer. What Ben Eller is trying to do in this video, where he tries to learn too many notes by Steve Morse, is ridiculous because he's trying to do it in a day. He gets really far with the tune, and it's such a difficult tune to actually get under your fingers. So, full credit to him, and this is in no way a criticism of his playing or his technique. The reason why I'm making this video is because he is using the magnet, and I have a lot of problems with the magnet because I feel like we are losing some crucial detail when we look at guitar through the window of this particular camera angle. And if you are only using it for this purpose, you can miss a lot of really important detail. So we're going to talk about that in this video as to why is Ben Eller unable to play this particular alternate picking sequence at the kind of speed that Steve Morse does. What is he missing from analyzing it from this angle, and where you need to be very careful if you're using either mirrors or cameras to analyze your technique in this way. So again, just to reiterate, this is not a criticism of Ben Eller or anything like that. It's just the fact that he has picked this angle in his playing, and he's been using the magnet to do it, I think has actually stopped him from being able to do this particular technique. So just bear that in mind, and as we continue with the video, hopefully that will become clear. You can't learn how to pick properly using 2D planes, and we worked this out very, very quickly. Troy Grady worked this out with if the pick moves in just 2D motions, it gets stuck in the strings here. But the problem with the magnet is it's filming this way, right? It's filming towards the hand, watching the hand make these kind of motions. You are losing all of the information that happens from the front of the instrument, and a lot of that information is really, really important. So one of the things that is definitely something I am experimenting with at the moment is this idea of trying to pick on the blades of the pick. If I use my demonstration pick again, what I mean by that is this kind of motion. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to force, as if it's a knife, the pick through the string this way, and then back through the back edge of the string. So it's edge first each time. And there is absolutely no contact with the side of the pick, the fat side of the pick. It's all on the edge. Like this edge goes through the string that way, and then this edge comes back through the string this way. If I really exaggerate it, you can see the arc of the pick is actually going through this way, not that way, which is slightly contrary to something I've said in a previous video. I think you can do both, but this is quite an interesting one. And the reason is you don't need any force to get a very loud pick attack. So you can get a very clear, very defined pick attack like that without actually, going through the strings really hard and tensing up loads. But the other reason is that there is a difference between these two motions. This is kind of hard to demonstrate, so hopefully I'll get this right. But if I do something like this, and this, I don't know if you can see the difference between those. Very, very subtle, but one of them I'm going like this. Forward on the pick stroke, backwards on the upstroke, like this, if I really exaggerate it. So the wrist is actually doing this. So that upstroke is coming backwards towards the forearm like this, and then the downstroke is going this way. So we've got a little bit of this sort of motion going on. It's not all that, right? That's the other thing that's really important here. Pick strokes are really, really complicated, so you don't want to just have one motion going on. But what I see a lot of, and this is where we get onto the Ben Eller video, is this. And that's turning this way, down this way. So I'm turning the pick this way and then turning it back up, turning it that way. You can see these are slightly different wrist motions. You lose a lot of that detail from this direction. You can't actually see me do that. They look almost exactly the same, but they feel very, very different, and it's actually more obvious from the front, which is where the magnet is not going to pick this up. So one of the things that I found with this is, particularly with bursts, that kind of string change is much easier to imagine going forward, picking back and then forward. So for both inside and outside pick strokes, we get something like this. So I'm alternating those. I don't know if you can see that. One of them starts with an upstroke, one of them starts with a downstroke. They are both incredibly fast for bursts where you need to make one string change very, very quickly. Whereas this, if I'm going backwards towards this end of the guitar, like this, that's about as fast as I can get that. It's much, much slower, particularly when it comes to things like the Steve Morse tune. That's the reason why, when you watch that Ben Eller video, he's topping out at like 150, 160 on alternate picking that sequence. It's because he's trying this. He's trying to go... And that isn't as efficient as going forward. It's something like that, and hopefully you can see the difference. They look very, very similar, and from this angle in particular, you will not see that slightly forwards motion that I'm doing with that second one. But it's there, and you can catch it from the front of the guitar, and you can see someone picking this way as opposed to picking this way. And I generally find with a lot of very, very complex alternate picking sequences, this is slightly faster. And, that's not to say that there aren't players who are really quick this way. There are people who can definitely get up to 180, 190 BPM on that. But one of the things that I'm seeing a lot is that the people who are in the sort of stupid fast category all go through the strings on the edge of the pick as if it was a knife this way, not sort of brushing through the strings that way. So if we go back to that piece of magnet footage from Ben Eller, we can see he is picking towards the volume knob, but it's really hard to see that he's doing that from this angle, which is my first criticism of using this angle exclusively. If you have this kind of device or this kind of camera, you definitely want to be using both a side-on and a front-on camera angle so that you can see what you're doing. And the other thing we can see here is that his pick is going through the strings, and it's not actually going through the strings on the edge, but you have to see this in slow-mo footage, so it's really hard to teach people how to do this without just teaching them to do it via feel, not via visual information. And the pick on here is slightly turning onto the flat side before it actually goes through the string. He's not using the edges of the pick strictly to cut through the string and cut it in half like you would a knife. You can see that in this footage, but again, these are things that are difficult to pick up on non-slowed down footage and from this camera angle, and they are easier to learn through feel and through the camera angle that we normally use front on. Hopefully this has been a useful video, and this is in no way a criticism of any of those players. Troy Grady is an absolutely incredible player, as is Ben Eller. I think they've done an amazing job on trying to explain a lot of this stuff, but there are these big limitations to the usage of the magnet and the usage of their methodologies that I think are limiting a lot of people on a lot of this really complicated, really difficult stuff. So hopefully that explains that anyway.